you all being here. I am the illustrator of this new book that came out. It's called Summer at Four Steps Way. And when I say I'm the illustrator, I drew all the pictures to tell the story. And my sister-in-law, Christina, she wrote the stories. And these were stories she told her kids when they were little. And they went to a lake cabin in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. So, here we're gonna start. The first story is called The Mysterious Raspberry. Under a set of worn wooden steps, above a shimmering lake lives Mr. Chipmunk. He is outside his home at 4 Steps Way. Mr. Chipmunk looks up towards the steel blue sky and watches the sun's glare dancing with the movement of nearby tree branches. Like most summer days, Mr. Chipmunk gathers nuts and fruit to eat and store in his hollowed-out home under the steps. They will keep him well fed over a long, cold winter. As he pauses outside his home, he takes in a deep breath of fresh pine-scented air. Looking up through the tree branches, he sees Gray, the spunky squirrel. Crack open a nut she's collected already this morning. In the distance, he hears an irritating sound of a woodpecker drilling into a hardwood tree looking for a tasty insect. So Mr. Chipmunk lives 4 steps down. See the little door there? And a set of stairs that's outside the lake cabin. Looking down, he suddenly notices a large and juicy-looking red raspberry at his feet. Where could this have come from? He thinks to himself. Quickly glancing about to see who could have possibly left such a treat outside his home, he discovers there is no one in sight. He snatches up the berry and gobbles it. Did you know that's how chipmunks eat? They go like this. So doesn't that raspberry look delicious? Who likes raspberries? I like raspberries. Okay, there's the chipmunk. He's eating the raspberries. As raspberry juice dribbles down his chin, he thinks to himself, who could have possibly dropped such a rare and yummy berry? Raspberries are difficult to find, as the woolly bear and the quiet deer usually nibble off the ripe fruit of the raspberry branches in the early morning long before the other animals have had a chance to gather them. Mr. Chipmunk smiles with his eyes as he realizes his good fortune. Someone has actually dropped a red raspberry right at his door. What luck! So there he is. He's eating the red raspberry and he looks like he's enjoying it, doesn't he? Yum, yum. Okay. Over the next few mornings, Mr. Chipmunk opens his front door to find a single red raspberry on his step. It stops feeling like a lucky accident. Rather than someone just dropping a red raspberry, it feels like someone is placing the fruit at his door. Now, it seems more like the setting of a trap. Mr. Chipmunk quickly decides he needs to investigate who or what is trying to bait him. The next morning before the sun rises, Mr. Chipmunk jumps out of his warm quilted covered bed and goes outside to hide in the thick brush of his step. As he kneels on the cold dirt next to the dew-filled leaves, he wonders what he will do if he sees someone, and what will he do if he gets scared? Or the creature sees him first and is angry. What if he doesn't have to wait long? Just before the sunlit peak above the treetops, he sees who has been placing the raspberries. It is a small plump mouse who has been placing a beautiful, juicy red raspberry by his door. Do you see the mouse with the raspberry? And then Mr. Chipmunk's hiding behind the brush, right next to his home. See that? Aha! Mr. Chipmunk calls out triumphantly as he jumps from behind the brush and onto the step. Do you guys all want to help me surprise that mouse? Should we all together, when I say 1, 2, 3, let's say aha as loud as we can, okay? 1, 2, 3. Aha! Good job. But the mouse doesn't seem startled by the sudden and loud outcry. She just tilts her head and says, "Good morning." The mouse's calm behavior surprises Mr. Chipmunk, so he asks, "What are you doing?" "I'm leaving you a red raspberry," says the mouse very matter-of-factly. "Why?" asks Mr. Chipmunk. "Well, because I have an extra raspberry and I thought you might enjoy it," calmly answers the mouse. "I have enjoyed the berries, but why did you leave them for me?" "I've already answered that question," says the mouse, "because I have extra. I like to share. I have seen you enjoying them, so I have continued to leave my extra raspberry at your step." That was very nice of the mouse, wasn't it? Yeah. Surprised but happy, Mr. Chipmunk can't believe that he has been given such a wonderful treat for no particular reason. He couldn't remember a time when someone had been so kind to him by giving him such a gift. Mr. Chipmunk introduces himself and asks if the mouse would like to watch the sunrise on his step. "That would be very nice. My name is Gouda," says the mouse. "Gouda, well now, that's just the right name for a mouse." After that morning, Mr. Chipmunk found a red raspberry at his front door, and each was as plump and sweet as the fruit from the day before. So there are the steps again, and you see Mr. Chipmunk and the mouse watching the sunrise. Do you think they've become good friends now? I think so, yeah. Okay, so the story continues. One morning, Gray the spunky squirrel was perched on the rail above Mr. Chipmunk's steps as he stepped out of his front door. She had collected acorns and was busy breaking them open for their meat. As Mr. Chipmunk picked up the beautiful berry that Berry left that morning, he felt Gray was watching him. "Nice berries," she commented. "Yes, they are delicious," replied Mr. Chipmunk, looking down at his beautiful berry. As wonderful as it was to have a juicy and sweet raspberry each morning, Mr. Chipmunk found he couldn't eat an entire raspberry each day. He still had some left from yesterday on his kitchen table. Mr. Chipmunk smiled to himself as he remembered the good fortune of Gouda leaving a raspberry at his door, and how happy that kind gesture had made him feel each time it happened. Suddenly, Mr. Chipmunk had an idea. If receiving such a wonderful and rare treat felt so good, he wondered if giving could feel just as good. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So Mr. Chipmunk looked up at Gray and said, "Would you like to have this raspberry?" Gray dropped the acorn onto Mr. Chipmunk's step, almost hitting him. She looked at him with amazement in her eyes. "Do you mean it?" asked Gray. "Yes," replied Mr. Chipmunk with a smile on his face. He stretched upward, standing on his tiptoes to hand the raspberry to Gray. Grabbing onto the rail with her hind legs, Gray reached and took the red raspberry from Mr. Chipmunk. So you see the handoff there? "Thank you," she said. As she grabbed the red raspberry, she began happily nibbling the fruit. So squirrels eat the same way chipmunks do. Do you remember how I did that? Do you want to help me? Right. So, with her treasure pushed into the cheek of her mouth, Gray jumped from the railing to her tree and ran up to her home. As he sat back down on his hind legs watching Gray scurry up her tree, Mr. Chipmunk thought to himself, "It did feel very good to give. In fact, he said to no one in particular, "It feels wonderful." So, that's one of 3 stories in this book. So, can you guys tell me, did you learn anything from this story? What did you learn?
That giving is just as good as getting.
Ooh,
Very
good
good,
job.
very good. And that's what Mr. Chipmunk learned, right? Yeah, yeah. And the mouse Gouda, she was very kind, and she shared what she had. And that's an easy way to make friends, isn't it? When you're kind and you share maybe your toys or maybe a treat you might have. Yeah, so you guys are a great audience. Thank you so much for coming. I have something for you. I drew a raspberry, and I'm going to give you guys each one of these. But what looks kind of not right about this raspberry? What?
It's not colored.
You guys are too smart for me. Yeah, you're right. It's not colored. So I'm giving this to you if you want to take it home and color it up really the best you can do, and you can either keep it as my gift to you, or you could give it to someone special and kind of get that joy of giving a gift. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, this is my first reading, so I appreciate the audience. And you guys were the best audience ever, so thank you so much. And have a very full day.
Oh, I love it.